Hello everyone, and welcome to the final Homestuck tier list. All the characters, baby! For the first time ever, I can actually look at this. Yay! That said, not a lot of really new things to rank, like a lot of stuff that hasn't been on the other tier lists. Not a lot of new characters necessarily. And as you can see on these tiers that I've created, that means we're going to have a lot of plot devices, okay? So, let me go over sort of what I'm using to rank these characters. Personal opinion? It's in there, alright? I have biases. Everybody does. What can I say? I feel like after reading 8,000 pages, it would be hard for you not to have a couple characters that you just like, despite the fact that, like, they barely did anything. Like, you would not believe the amount of people who've told me their favorite character in Homestuck is Dave Petta, when Dave Petta is literally on screen for, like, I don't know, maybe 30 pages total. It's probably more than that, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, that's that. And then, of course, the second, and what I'm going to try to weight more, is the quality of their writing. As in, do they have an arc? Do they actually fulfill that arc? And are they incredibly annoying or no? Underrated fact, you know, that you should probably think about your characters, and are they really annoying? So, it feels weird to begin with John, but let's begin with John. Like, it feels like John should be at the end. We should get some of these bozos out of the way first. That's okay. We can do the four beta kids first. John, pretty cool. He doesn't really have an arc necessarily. I mean, I guess you could argue that John's arc is when he learns to embrace his aspect, right? And does the windy thing. But I feel like there is a little bit of something there. It's not quite as overt as, okay, that like someone like Dave, right? I feel like you can very easily look at him and say, like, okay, this is how he changed over the course of the story and became less so about posturing and trying to prove himself and more so about understanding himself and, you know, asserting his own, what do I want to say? Asserting himself as his own person, let's just put it that way, instead of trying to constantly live up to bro. Plus, you know, all around very fun character. John is a very fun character, I would say, but compared to Dave in this example, his arc is more so just to, I guess, have confidence in himself to be able to do things. And yeah, he does do that. And honestly, I think it's probably fine that the main character doesn't have a huge arc in this story, because that means John just, like, grounds us the whole time. Kind of funny, given he's got, like, the air aspect. But yeah, I think it's a good choice, but it lands him here on the tier list. Rose? Oh, this hurts me a little bit. Let's just put them all on the list. I think in the end, Jade is Homestuck. This is holistic, right? I'm looking at everything that's happened over the course of the whole webcomic. And obviously, I'm going to remember the end the most and, like, the big moments. And Jade is so important to a lot of big moments that it can be... I think I might be overrating her slightly. But in the very beginning, she was the bottom tier kid. Okay, well, you know, I ranked Dave because he annoyed me for, like, a little while. For, like, Act 1, and then he started getting better. And, you know, that's fine, because that's his character arc, right? Jade was, like, non-existent until she entered the game in, like, Act 4, but she kind of hard carried. Like, one of the most important flashes in the entire comic. And after that, even though she wasn't involved in too much of the main plot, she continued to be, like, our vessel to look into this weird stuff that was going on in the background, like all the dream bubble shenanigans and all of this stuff, the calliopes, the you know, the dogs that were chasing each other across space and time. And also she did have some things going on in the waking world, let's say. uh, where she was, she had the thing with Dave's sprite, which I thought was very interesting because it sort of lends her a different dynamic. And at the very end, I mean, at least she didn't actually get, like, shunted aside in the final battle. At least she actually got to do something, even though it didn't actually succeed for her. But whatever. I think Jade has the coolest powers, probably. And definitely one of the more memorable designs with, like, the red slippers and everything else is black, and also the dog ears. So yeah, I can't really argue with that. Rose, on the other hand, similarly, has a problem of barely being active in the main plot after a certain point. But the problem is she was really active in the beginning, but the beginning of Homestuck is the shortest part. Like, she was writing an FAQ on the mechanics of the game and, like, delving into the mechanics of the game. Guess what doesn't matter for, like, the last 4,500 pages of Homestuck? The mechanics of the game. And yes, she obviously gains Kanaya in that time, which is nice, but we barely see them together at all for such a long time. At the end, when everybody is together, they're together, which, sure, that's nice. But they didn't, like, go on a quest together or something, you know? They didn't have anything to really do. And so, while Jade was sort of in the same boat, while Dave and John were actually engaging with the plot sometimes, less so Dave, I guess, in the ship years. I don't know how else to say it, but you know, the years where they were stuck on the asteroid and the ship. I feel like Dave almost gets help from the fact that Dave's sprite also exists and was also doing things. It's like hard to separate them. And, you know, the sort of ending of Homestuck was like, oh yes, all those experiences matter, so whatever. Whereas I feel like Rose she fell off, man. And it sucks, because she was my second favorite after John. Like, my original tier list for the kids, in, like, the early acts, was John number 1, Rose number 2, Jade number 3, Dave number 4. And it's almost completely inverted. To the point where it's like, oh yeah, Dave is number 1, Jade is number 2, John is number 3, and Rose is number 4. It's sad, because I wanted to like Rose, and, you know, it's just she never really did the thing. Like, I don't know, even Terezi, at, like, the final second, got to use her power on screen to do something interesting. Rose got to use her power off screen a hell of a lot, but we never got to see it. Like, I don't know. It's sad, okay? Papa. Well, okay. All the adults. These are kind of plot devices, but because Bro and Dad are basically characters, I'll rank them all as characters. I feel like Dad serves his purpose. I feel like Bro is actually a really interesting character, and these two are, like, in a little lackluster. With how much I love Roxy, which, spoiler alert, it's kind of sad that Mom Lalonde basically just stands around most of the time. It'd be nice if they all kind of stand around, but like, Bro got action scenes, and so did Dad. These two did not. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of underselling Grandpa Harley, because at least he got, like, to pick up Jade's dream corpse and be, like, sad about it. I don't know. I feel like that's the proper place. Because, I mean, he had, like, that whole Prospidian ship, but he never did anything with it. Like, imagine, okay? Imagine if, in that moment when Jade is going to, like, push John out of the way and sacrifice herself to save his dream self. Like, just imagine if he, like, I don't know, did something in that moment to try to stop it from happening because he, like, knew it was going to happen, but it didn't work out. That'd be something. As it stands, we get basically nothing, and Becquerel is basically Jade's guardian. So, yeah. And then Roxy, or Mom Lalonde, She basically just kind of stands around and watches things, like, ominously, and presses buttons. Which, like, cool. I mean, I guess she has this whole secret laboratory underneath the forest, which is pretty crazy. Shame we never see her actually, like, you know, I don't know, cut a meteor in half or something. Like, I know that's not maybe within her power set, but it would be interesting if, like, you know, she had, like, a giant laser or something set up to repel meteors to help Rose. She kind of could have used that. Or, I don't know, something. Yeah. I mean, these two are definitely the most important Guardians, as it stands for the Beta Kids. Papa, because he shows up in both timelines, and that's really it. We get at least some characterization for him too, so that's something. And Bro, because Bro is basically the center of Dave's character arc. We don't really find that out till the end, but it kind of all makes everything click, you know? So, yeah. And also he does a lot of cool stuff and gets killed by Jack in probably one of the coolest flashes. So, yeah, I can't really argue with that. Nah. Where are the other sprites? I'll do all the sprites at once. Okay, not all the sprites, but all the beta sprites. Before we have any trolls mixed in. I guess Dave's sprite counts. You know, I could just do all the sprites. There's not that many of them. I don't have much to say about, like, half of them, so... I forgot about Fefita sprite. Okay. Dave Beta. Jaspros. Why do I feel like I'm missing one? Oh, where's Jade sprite? Do we not have Jade sprite? I mean, I guess technically Jade is Jade sprite, but... it's a little weird. Whatever. Jade Sprite probably would have gone in pretty cool, because I feel like Jade Sprite served her purpose pretty well. That's weird. The definitive Homestuck tier list. Yeah. Okay. Nana. I kind of wanted more from Nana in the end, but I think I can put her in mid. She does some pretty cool stuff, again, in the early acts, just like Rose, and then kind of falls off completely. Which is kind of true for all of the early beta sprites. But, you know what? Bird Sprite's basically a non-existent character, considering Dave Sprite takes over, like, immediately. Dave Sprite is Homestuck, but let me... Every Strider is going to be in this tier, I just realized. Well, let me finish my thought about Nana. Nana and Jane only got to talk in, like, the last, like... 100 pages of the comic. Feels a little strange, and then they didn't even really talk on screen. It was kind of weird. I mean, she did help out at the end, so that's cool, I guess. It would have been kind of nice if we got a little bit more from her. I know we got, like, lore about her, but it would be nice if we got a little bit more from her, considering that Jane is who she is in the other timeline, and Dad is just Dad in the other timeline. So we had plenty of more time for him. Again, that probably wasn't planned, but as it stands, it's a little bit unfortunate for Nana. Honestly, Jasper's sprite, that's Animal Companion tier. I guess I'll put the bird in there too, because I don't want to be mean. It's just a bird. This is a bad plot device. Tavros sprite. Honestly, I don't really like Tavros sprite either. What did he do? Absorbed a cat, I guess, and got terminal allergies? Sure. Did he really need to exist? No, not really. Godcat also barely did anything. Is Godcat on here? Godcat is literally a bad plot device. All Godcat did was, like, teleport 2 things and then sit on the Condessa's lap all spookily and then get absorbed by Tavros and completely nullified from the equation. Like, what was even the point? Fefita sprite. Okay, Fefita is literally a plot device, I guess. She just kind of exists in the background for Roxy to have somebody to talk to, so I don't know. Good for them, I guess, for being alive for a little bit. Aerosol is almost the same because he's, again, literally just somebody for Jake to talk to, but he has actual speaking lines. So, and they're pretty funny, so I'll put him in pretty cool. I think Arceus is the best of the modern sprites. Actually making Equius and AR like a fun character, and that might just be because of the voice I did, but you know, I can't say anything bad really. Yeah, this might be controversial. Jaspro's sprite, what was this? Like, this really felt like we need filler for the ending of the story. Like, what did this accomplish? I would much have rathered if Rose had just stayed dead in Roxy's actually pretty heartfelt funeral. You know? I don't know. It did not feel necessary. And honestly, I could say the same thing about Dave Petta, but Dave Petta gave us a little bit of closure with the whole Dave Sprite Jade situation, which got retconned away. So I'll put Dave Petta in pretty cool. They're fine. I don't really have anything against them other than, I guess, the flashing lights. Oh god, my eyes. Just thinking about it. It's just, unfortunately, I don't really like Jaspros at all, and Dave Petta spends a lot of time talking to Jaspros. I mean, my favorite thing about Jaspros is just the name, because it has pros in it, and I think that's funny. But that's it. Everything else I just do not like at all. Okay. AR. I mean, this is just worse Arceus sprite. So I'll put AR in mid. It's a bit weird to like go earlier in the timeline of AR, because where AR ends up I like, but the bunny, there's the other bunny on here too, right? Yeah, Liv Tyler. Okay, Liv Tyler. Liv Tyler is pretty cool. This bunny, literally a plot device. I couldn't really care less. I guess I could care less in that case, but why do we have... Okay, evil Jade is a bad plot device. We literally had to retcon it out of existence. I like evil Jane, but she's wasted. We don't get any more, like, understanding of Jane as a character when she goes evil. Instead, when we really needed to delve into her personality, like, this was the time period where we really needed to focus on Jane if she was going to be a memorable character. She is replaced with, like, a robotic personality. It's like, whose idea was this? Like, it'd be very interesting if Jane really was the main character of Act 6 to lose her at this point, because it would, you know, feel like a bad ending sort of timeline, which it is. But she wasn't. I mean, as much as the plot might want her to be, the main character is undeniably Dirk Strider. And it's funny because I don't feel the same way about the beta kids at all. The main character always feels like Jean, because Jean's always the one who has to do the big thing, or like set the big thing up, or come in at the last second to save everybody. But that is literally Dirk's whole role in the Alpha Kids. So yeah, and then we really needed this time to develop Jane. Why couldn't Dirk have been taken over by evil magic? Like, I know it doesn't make sense because it's like the crown is something that Jane was using, and it's Crocker Corp, blah blah blah, and like it's the Condesce taking over like the two heiresses to her empire from the two universes. Yeah, I understand, but it would be way more convenient, because Dirk is basically gone for this section anyway in the furthest ring, if we just had evil Dirk, and it would be more scary. Plus, Dirk does not need any more time in the spotlight until he talks to Dave at like the end of the comic, where Jane definitely did. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. The robots, Sawtooth and Sinewave. I don't remember. I guess this one's Sawtooth and this one's Sinewave, because that's what their mouths are. They're basically like animal companions. They're little guys that hang out. Speaking of, Maple Hoof. These guys are literally a plot device. I don't think they're a bad plot device because they're clearly meant for a joke, and I think the joke is pretty funny. The idea that Guy Fieri is like an evil fascist dictator is pretty funny in this alternate timeline. Okay. I guess we're just doing the Cals now. Calliope, Caliborn, and Calliope 2. I guess I'll do Lord English and Lil Cal at the same time. There they are. Lord English is absolutely wasted. Don't you? Okay, maybe a little lackluster. Let's be a little generous. Why? I guess, okay, I do kind of like the ending where we don't actually fight Caliborn and that's like the way you win, essentially. But why would you give us an origin story for Lord English and then have Lord English not be that guy? Like, he is Cal, but he's Cal and Arqueus and blah, 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 you know? He's like a combined force. It would be way cooler if it was just like, oh, this is Cal after like 5 billion years or something. He's turned this giant jacked monster who can only think of destruction. But no, that's not what we got. And honestly, I think the biggest problem with this sort of direction that we took is that if Caliborn didn't exist, right, and we just had Lord English, we would have time to actually flesh out Lord English a little bit. And this is a thing with all the Homestuck villains. The Condesse, Jack, or Bec Noir, Lord English, even, well... I don't know if I can count, like, the Black King or whatever for the trolls. But they don't have any speaking lines at all. And, like, I mean, the Condesse does have a couple lines, but not to our main characters, okay? And it just feels so odd to do that. Like, it works for Bec Noir, because Bec Noir is half dog. And it's kind of like a force of nature type thing, right? Lord English feels like it's trying to do the same thing, but the problem is we know what Bec Noir is capable of already, because we know Bec, right? And we also know Jack, but obviously Bec's powers are the more important ones in that equation. With Lord English, all we know is like, yeah, he can basically kill anything. And because that is the case, we have like no, at least when I was reading, okay, maybe this is totally different for some people. But when I was reading, that means I have no frame of reference. I'm like, okay, he's just an unkillable super monster that can kill everything in his sight. That's not very interesting. Like, he can be a silent villain and say nothing if his actions speak louder than his words. But his only action was going blah and blowing stuff up. It just does not work for me. The reason I'm putting Caliborn in mid is because I feel like, again, kind of feels like an aborted character arc where Caliborn never gets to actually be the bad guy. But I do kind of like that as a concept. He's not as bad as like Rose, for example, who feels like she kind of just got left out of a lot of important events that she probably should have been present for. Caliborn is in a totally different place. He's like an exile almost, but a little bit more important. I don't know. He also only worked for me for like half of his existence, the latter half. In the early half, he was the worst. So, yeah. Calliope. Okay. Early on, I didn't really care for Calliope either. I was like, oh, great. It's like our 5th rendition of the exposition character, which there's so many of them. There's Arania, and there's Doc Scratch. Where's Doc Scratch? And who else was the exposition character? I mean, Rose is the exposition character for a while, but she stopped being that. Honestly, Aradia is kind of an exposition character. Wait, why do we have... Oh, because I haven't actually ranked Real Jane yet, that's why. And Drew Hussey was doing the exposition for a while. And I understand it's a very, like, complicated story, so you kind of want that. But at the same time, why is there so many? And I don't find it particularly compelling either. is the problem. Calliope, probably my favorite of this bunch, behind only one of them, and I think you guys can guess which one. I think Calliope is pretty cool. I like that she actually has like a direction to her character, where she, loses and gets locked away in the dream bubbles, essentially. And then, gets to hang out with Jade while she's sleeping and Jane while she's sleeping and all this other stuff. Roxy. And yeah, I mean, the final words of Calliope 2, which are like, you should do what I never got to, live, basically, is pretty cool. But Calliope 2 is literally a plot device. Like, you can't convince me otherwise. So I ended up kind of liking Callie. I feel like Callie at least makes sense in her place in this story a bit more than Caliborn in the end. Andrew Hussey, I gotta be honest, I was never a fan of it. It always felt a little awkward. I think the very early ones where it's basically just fourth wall breaks, I'm fine with that. That's fine. But when Andrew Hussey himself is taking part in the plot of the comic, that's where I started to lose any feeling. I know a lot of people like Doc Scratch, and I think there are interesting points to his character, so I'm not going to put him in like bad, but I will put him in mid. And really, it just comes down to the fact that he basically absorbed Rose's role and left her with nothing to do other than talk to him. And he was the one talking the whole time. Plus, his text quirk was really annoying. And I don't know. I mean, I guess he played everybody and that was his end game, which, I kind of like that. Also, he's got a very cool design. I like the cue ball head with no features. Very fun. But again, I just feel like we set up Rose to like be digging into the aspects of the game, and that's how she met Doc Scratch. And then after that, Doc Scratch just takes over the entire plot and leaves her with nothing but relaying information we've already heard from him. I don't know. Feels a little strange. Aradia, I'll put her in a little lackluster. She had one really good moment after like Act 5 where she was actually relevant. Act 5, Act 1, by the way. After that, she was basically worthless. And even in that act, the only thing that I liked was that she got turned into a robot and then ripped her own heart out. That was pretty cool. Her and Solix didn't talk for a while. It was kind of weird. I guess Solix had other things going on, but still. They were set up to be like the only two trolls who were actually literally just friends with each other. So it's kind of sad that, they barely ever get to talk. Like, friends without, an additional wrinkle, like Vriska and Terezi hate each other now, or Karkat and Solix tolerate each other, but they're always trying to, like, one-up each other and stuff. Or Gamzee being murderous and Karkat really wanting him to stop. She had two cool, I guess three, because would you count Megalovania? I don't necessarily. I feel like she's, like, the most... or the least interesting part of that Flash. So it's really just when she rips her own heart out, which is pretty cool. And that line she has about death, where she's like, I don't mind death. I think death is kind of cool. It's like finishing the time loop, It's a completion of a journey, in a way. That was cool. She took on the role like the Grim Reaper. I liked that. But I wish she, had more to do in the story at all. Kind of sad. Aurania is my favorite exposition character because she actually tries to manhandle the plot. And I think that's, like, the coolest thing an exposition character could do. Is, like, be like, okay, I understand all of this knowledge and I've aggregated it. If anyone can control the timeline, it should be me. So I'm going to do it. And then, of course, it goes horribly and fails. But that was probably the coolest thing I think any of the Alpha Trolls ever did, for sure. Maybe one of the cooler things that happened in all of Act 6, even though it led to the retcon, which I'm a little mixed on. Oh, I needed a drink. Yeah, Aurania, she did annoy me for the first parts of her appearance, but she well made up for that by being kind of Vriska-like, But, like, back when Vriska was cool. Not to spoil anything, but hey. And then Lil Cal, I mean, he's literally a plot device. But I think he's a funny one, so he's not a bad plot device, in my opinion. Okay, the Alpha Trolls. Man, this is going to be a slaughter. I'm going to include Fishka in there as well. Are there any other trolls I want to add to this bunch? I mean, I guess I could do the ancestors at the same time, but whatever. I'll do those later. Cankry. Bad. Like, not even wasted? Like, literally just, I don't understand why we needed this. Who else is in that tier? Damara. I don't remember your name, Solix 2. I'm sorry. Okay, the rest of them at least had something going on. These three, I just don't get it. I just don't. Like, why? Why would you do this? Why would you make me read it? Okay. Latula. Like a dark reflection of Terezi, who's trying to be, I guess, all put up a huge, cool front so she doesn't have to face any of her internal struggles. Yeah, I guess. Again, that was something that kind of came out of nowhere at the end of the story for Terezi, and I came around on it a bit, because at least, you know, it's something for her to do. But, she and Latula never really, like, had a conversation about it or anything, that's for sure. Damara is... This is not Damara. What is your name? This is Damara, right? Who's this? Porum. Got it. She's a little cool, I guess. She's probably one of the more, like, fully realized of the Alpha Trolls, but I don't really care. Tavros' ancestor, he's named after that guy, but I don't remember that guy's name. Whatever. He's something, but not anything really interesting. Kurlaws is cool. I kind of like Kurlaws more than Gamzee. He's got like a far more interesting demeanor, let's say, than later Gamzee, which again, we will get there. Oh, will we get there? But that might just be because I didn't get that much of it. Maybe it would have like way overstayed its welcome as well. Mulin is kind of, they're basically one character. Horace? Is that his name? Oh, it's not spelt Horus. It's Horus, like the god, the Egyptian god. You know what? He can go in literally Y. Sure. I don't even remember your name either, but you can go in there. Mina grew on me, okay? I didn't really like her that much to begin with. But actually, you know what? Let's just move everybody down one tier. Because that feels better. Because I do think Tavros' ancestor was kind of cool. Could have been cooler, though. Like, he could have actually, you know, done anything. Or had anything to say. I don't know. Mina did grow on me a lot. In the original, I was like, why are we following her? She's never going to do anything. Did she ever do anything? I mean, arguably, I guess. But at the same time, we probably still would have been fine if she didn't exist. I think her sense of humor grew on me a lot as she started interacting with other people than Arania. And I did like her rapport with Vriska for a while, and then I didn't like it. Speaking of Fishka, literally why? Okay, it's not that bad. It's like it's not on the level of these guys. I don't like this at all. It's not weird for me to say. It's so weird to have okay. It's not weird. It makes sense for Homestuck and what it's trying to say, okay? As a story about basically learning to accept things as they are and just like live with them instead of constantly trying to fight them. Essentially, that is Homestuck. The more you fight against the cosmic bounds of the universe, the more you're going to ruin everything for yourself and the people you care about. You know, like, you're trying to cheat death. No, man, death happens. It's just like, you got to live your life. If you spend your whole life trying to cheat death, what have you lived? Nothing. Anyway, so that's why Fishka exists, right? Fishka is to show that Vriska can sort of embrace that mindset. But then is she even Vriska anymore? And the answer is basically no. But it feels so weird to set her up with a relationship with Mina that I think is actually very interesting, and then to just ruin it to make a point. Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm not a huge fan. I mean, her and Terezi, like dead Terezi from the bad timeline, got to meet up at the end and sort of like, you know, have somebody to face the end of the universe with. So that's cool, I guess. But, yeah. Ugh. Oh, God. Are we doing all the Jacks? Let's do all the Jacks. These guys count as Jacks as well, because honestly, who can even tell the difference? Okay. Where's Jack? No, that was Bec Noir. Aren't I missing a Jack? Oh no, this is the Jack with the cue ball eyes. I think that's why I'm thinking I'm missing one. Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll put the Black Queen and Snowman here as well. Let's just do all the Carapacians. Am I missing any? Well, I guess, okay, not the Condess. She took the place of one, but not really. Okay. Oh, the White King. This should be pretty fast. So, Spade Slick is undeniably the coolest Jack, because it's the Jack we spend the most time with. He's the one who we, you know, actually, like, play as for a while. And honestly, he kind of sold me on the concept of Jack as constantly being, like, this conniving second in command who wants to take power. It's fun. Jack Noir, or Bec Noir rather, I think Bec Noir, if we were going off only up till Act 5, would be in Homestuck. But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to drag him all the way down to mid, because, like, what is his purpose after Cascade? He exists to be chased by PM as a dog too, who honestly I'm putting in literally a plot device. At least we got some characterization from Jack before turning into Bec Noir. What is the purpose of them still existing? Nothing. I mean, it gets wrapped up at the end, and I do like the idea of Jack and also PM, because of being connected to Beckrel, being able to hurt Jade, essentially, or, like, respecting her in some way. But I feel like that was played out enough when Jack took her to her quest bed so she could revive. I don't know. I know somebody left a comment, so maybe you can tell me what I missed. Somebody left a comment when I was like, I don't see how the plot is going to wrap up Bec Noir in an interesting way. I'm like, oh, you just wait. Because, like, what happened? I mean, like, they get chased all the way to the new universe, and then in Game Over, they're, like, minorly relevant. But even then, like, if they weren't there, barely anything would change, you know? And then after that, in the final battle, Jade was just like, stop fighting! And then they didn't. And that was the end. Like, I don't know. I feel like going out with a big boom in Cascade would have been better for both them and Lord English, because it would have left Lord English no shadow to sort of fill, because Bec Noir is still around. And Bec Noir, in my opinion, is way cooler as a villain, because it's a villain created by our heroes, you know? And that's sort of the point of the game, even it's like a twisted way in this case, but I don't know. That's my opinion. Who even cares about Union Jack or whatever you want to call this guy? Who even cares? Clubs Deuce. Clubs Deuce is one of the best characters. Okay, that sounds like I'm being facetious, and of course I kind of am. But he is one of the best comedy characters in Homestuck, which Homestuck is very comedic in terms of tone. I feel like it is valid to rank one of the better comedy characters all the way at the top tier. Because is he interesting? Does he have depth? Oh, hell no. But he is funny whenever he's on screen, that's for sure. Okay, Heart's boxcars is a plot device. Like, what characterization does he have other than being big? Diamond's Drew gets a little bit of characterization in the Alpha timeline, which was kind of cool. But, like, it wasn't anything too crazy, you know? The Black Queen, plot device. Snowball. She's a little... she basically is a plot device, but she's a little cooler than that. I'll put her in pretty cool. I feel like her and Spade Slick are, like, the two standout things from that interlude. The White Queen, plot device. The White King, literally a bad plot device. He like comes out of nowhere, I guess, to deliver something to the White Queen through the Sprite Blossom thing in Jade's temple, and then gets instantly killed. So it's like he could have just left the item there and nothing would change, except a little shock value, I guess. And then Mr. Mayor. I mean, he's mid, honestly. And I know we love the mayor, okay? But why? If he actually died, I would probably have put him in Homestuck tier, okay? Because then he would have served a purpose of sort of sending us into the new universe on sort of a clean slate. And, you know, it would be an emotional moment of him getting killed by Bec Noir. And then if Bec Noir also died there in that Cascade Flash, then it would feel very satisfying, all right, to get revenge on him, even though he just saved Jade, you know? It'd be, like, a little bit conflicting, but overall, like, a satisfying feeling. But instead, Mr. Mayor just randomly survived, because I guess we need him for fan service. Not the type you're thinking of, but, you know. Is it nice that he gets to live? I suppose. But he doesn't contribute anything. Like, literally, he could have been replaced with this cat, who I don't remember the name of, but was like Roxy's cat, cloned cat, and nothing would change. He could have been replaced by a fancy lamp, as the saying goes, and nothing would change. So, this cat, I mean, it's animal companion tier, but probably the coolest one. Bec could be animal companion tier, but I feel like Bec has more personality than most of them, so I want to rank him as a real character. Honestly, I think Bec is Homestuck tier, which is, again, kind of crazy. A character with no lines, but Bec just informs so much about our understanding of Homestuck in that particular period of the comic that I feel like if you took him out, it would be way worse for it. The idea that Jade is literally raised by dogs, hilarious. The idea that Becquerel can, like, basically annihilate the entire Earth at any moment and doesn't because he's too busy, like, eating irradiated steaks from Jade is very funny. And also Becquerel intentionally sacrificing himself in order to save Jade. Yeah, that's a dog moment, you know? And then that understanding of Becquerel continuing to go on to inform our understanding of the main villain, it's great. It's really well done. Probably one of the best, like, plot device characters in Homestuck. AR, who cares? AR, more like, who cares? Honestly, again, could have been served by the role of, like, a little robot that dispenses caution tape and pushes buttons, you know? Yeah. Where's Mail Lady? Mail Lady? Oh, Mail Lady was a dog, and I already ranked her. Okay. Serenity. I mean, this is Animal Companion. I do like the idea of her speaking in Morse code. And it would have been kind of sad if she outlived the mayor, but, you know, she's just Animal Companion. Salamancer did show up with an army full of skeletons. I think that makes him Homestuck tier, or her. I don't think it's ever confirmed. But it is very funny that this salamander continues throughout the entire plot. Oh god, the felt. Would you guys be okay if I just didn't rank the felt? Because, like, honestly, who cares? I'm not, like, it's the same with the denizens as well. Like, I understand putting them on here to make a complete tier list, but, like, these are not characters. These are, like, RPG enemies you fight one time. That's like putting the imps on here and the ogres, you know? Anyway, I guess I'll put them in literally a plot device. Because it's what they are. And to be fair, some of them are funnier than others. Like, I like the guy that punches you into next week. That's a very funny concept. But is it really worth all of this? No. No. It's not worth ranking them as characters. Hey, there he is, the guy who punches you in the next week. Miss Paint? Literally why? What is her role? She's like, eye candy? That's like the best way to describe it? I don't understand. Denizens, they are exactly a plot device. Like, that is it. That is explicitly said. I don't even remember some of these. Like, whose is this? I mean, from the purple, I would imagine Rose's, but who knows? All of these guys are basically animal companion, but some of them are cooler than others, so, Like, I think Terezi's dragon is a cool character that serves its purpose pretty well as being like this crazy touch point for all the telekinetic powers going on. And I could say the same for Golglob. It's a very cool looming threat that the trolls then have to fight later. And I think Vriska's spider also does a good amount to develop her character. Like, are they literally plot devices? Yes. But do they develop their characters in the same way Beckerel does in a lot of ways? I would argue probably yes. Or the world, in the case of Glogly. But these guys are all animal companion. I know it's, like, weird because they're basically parents, but, you know. How much did Tinkerbell really take care of Tavros? We don't even have a transparent image of Gamzees. I think this guy was in one scene. It did look pretty cool in that one, though. Okay. Before I get to everybody else, who is this? Who? I'm just going to put literally a plot device. I mean, you could say the same for most of the ancestors. Like, the ones that don't really matter. So, you don't really matter. Well, I kind of do like what goes on with you. And you matter. You don't really matter. In terms of the grand plot, okay? That's what I'm saying. Of the ancestors. I don't really think you matter. Okay. Actually, I don't... Okay, I'm putting Terezi's in bad plot device because it makes me mad that they didn't, like, have a duel or something where Vriska won. Like, Vriska's ancestor, Duel Scar or whatever. Instead, it was just like, she cheated a court system which definitely should have understood that was one of her powers and got a bunch of regular people to kill her. Which just doesn't... I don't know. I don't really like that as a plot beat. Tavros' ancestor being like a folk hero. That's pretty cool. Karkat's ancestor being like Jesus. I actually really like the backstory of Karkat's ancestor. And along with that, I like everybody that surrounds the Sufferer. That's what it's called. You don't. But I do like you as well. I think it's a cool story. And it sort of explains, I guess, even though you don't have to explain something like this, but it gives background to why these characters in the present day interact in the way they do. And then... okay. I mean, I guess the Condess also technically counts as an ancestor. I think it's kind of cool that the Condess is literally so old that she existed during this time period. And is like the troll's main villain in that sense. If only, she had a larger stake in the plot other than just being the looming threat the whole time. But yeah, let's just talk about the Condess. I think the Condesce is wasted in a lot of ways. Like, yes, does she interact with the plot a lot? Yes. Is it mostly off screen? Yes. She floods the entire Earth off screen. She kills Dave and Rose is in the alternate timeline off screen, basically. I mean, we see like the start of the fight, but we don't actually really see much else. She, I don't know, mind controls Jane and Jade, and then instead of actually taking the plot threads that they do and expanding on her character, we give them to those two and don't expand on their characters with them. It's just, I don't understand. And then, I don't know, she gets kind of taken out like a punk in the end. I mean, like, Roxy stabbing her once and her dying is kind of ridiculous, considering what we know about High Bloods. And she's life-oriented, because she's the same as Mina, right? So she should also be, like, a thief of life, or whatever. I don't know. I know we had to wrap everything up, but it just feels like there should have been something more significant to finish her off. I guess. Or she should have had some more significant stake in the plot earlier on. As it stands, she feels like a character design that's cool, and that's it. Like, either she... Okay, I can't stop talking about her, apparently. Either she should have been the main villain for the trolls, who want to, like, take down the evil empress that made their society such a shithole, basically. Even though it was technically Doc Scratch, but whatever. Or she should have been the main enemy of the Crocker group, and then they should have taken her down, but instead it's like just like the main heroes. I don't know. It's weird. Somebody did say that, like, okay, well, technically the Condesce did kidnap Roxy, because in the original video, in the finale, I said it really makes no sense for Roxy to be the one that kills the Condesce, because they have almost no connection. And I still stand by that. Like, early on in the story, Roxy doesn't like the Condesce right out of the gate, probably because she already knows what she did. Like, it wasn't like a gut feeling or anything. And yes, the Condesce was responsible for her future essentially being snatched away because she flooded the Earth. And in the same way, you know, she stabs the Condesce with Dirk's sword, and that was the same thing that happened to him thanks to the Condesce. But I don't know. I feel like the people she mind controlled, or the entire species she enslaved, basically, have a bigger stake. I don't know. Like, I would have been absolutely fine with Roxy killing almost any other villain. Yeah, I don't know. And this is from a Roxy lover, okay? The Psionic. I think this one's pretty cool, too. Like, again, the ancestors, I wish they were more relevant, honestly, because they're way cooler than the Alpha Troll versions of them. But, yeah. Okay, Eridan just cannot catch a break. It's a little bit more interesting. I mean, it's more interesting than him. Whatever this guy's name is, I don't even remember. But, yeah. And then Dual Scar I'd put in pretty cool. Her story, again, there's some bullshit parts to it, like where she just like she gets arrested, and then the court system is just like, oh, here's a bunch of mind-controllable targets for you. We never thought this through at all. I don't know. But whatever. Okay, we're down to just main characters left, and this video has gone on almost an hour, so let's get through this. First off, the trolls that don't matter. Let me hear a Nepeta. Let me hear a Thefri. Whoa, what is happening? My mouse didn't like that I was putting them in here. Let me hear an Eridan. And let me hear... I already put a Radia up there. Never mind. So, why do I say these three are wasted? Well, they all kind of died like punks, to be honest. I mean, Eridan did kill 3 people before getting cut in half, but he kind of got cut in half in almost a comedic fashion. And a character who also died like a punk, Tavros, got way more to do after he died. It was clear that the story just did not have room for Feferi, Nepeta, and Eridan, and we just needed them out, you know? And so that's what happened. And it's a shame with Eridan, I guess, because he could have had an interesting character arc. I mean, he was poised to be sort of like a villain from the very beginning when he wanted to wipe out all life on land on Alternia. And then he killed 3 people. And he does die, at least. Which I can't say for somebody. He does die, at least. So there's like a little bit of catharsis there. But it just feels like he split on a dime. Because we lost out on a lot of the Trolls' development in Act 5, Act 1. It feels like, anyway. And he was one of the last ones introduced. So it really feels like we went from his introduction to him murdering 3 people to his death. There's not a lot to really chew into there. Feferi, it's kind of the same. Like, she had the dream bubble thing going for her, where she kind of explained that to us. But that's like it. And you'd think, as like, again, opposite of the Condess, another potential ruler of troll kind, who's like the opposite of the Condess in so many ways. And, I don't know, Solix's girlfriend, she'd have more to do than get murdered. But, unfortunately, all she has to do is get murdered. And then Nepeta, poor sweet Nepeta. Why? Even Equius got it a little bit better than you in the end. Because, again, Equius, he's sort of poised as a villain early on as well, where he's basically trying to enslave Aradia to be his robot wife, and making a bunch of obscene references that were hard to read, I will say. But at the end, he almost gets like a redemption arc by, you know, having that one scene with Nepeta where he's actually kind of just like a chill, normal dude who wants her to be safe and stuff, and not like a overbearing, sort of abusive figure in her life, which is what it seems like in his first conversation with her. And then after that, he gets to become Arqueus and be like a funny jokester character. So I'm putting him in mid. Unfortunately, Nepeta never gets any of that. Like, I guess Nepeta becomes Dave Peta in the end. But like I said, Dave Peta only exists for like 30 pages. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a little sad. Plus, she charges Gamzee to avenge Equius and instantly dies. Like, she's supposed to be one of the best fighters out of the trolls, right? Because she's like a predator, essentially. She goes out hunting monsters for food every day. I don't know. No. Okay. Let's go for the mid-trolls. Solix. I always had a soft spot for Solix for some reason. I think it was just his demeanor was funny to me. An appreciator of dry humor. Does he really do much? No. He's probably in mid, unfortunately. But I still do think he's cool. And I don't think he's wasted, you know? I feel like he fulfills his role in the story well enough. Tavros. Again, like I said, kind of got killed like a punk. But he came back and, you know what? He completed his character arc by bringing the army together. So I'm going to put him in pretty cool at the end of the day. Oh, but he did have that really annoying period for a while. I'll put him in mid. Overall, I think he did well. Like, the trajectory of his character went well. But I feel like he separated from Vriska way too late for me to put him in pretty cool, you know? Like, that should have been, like, the middle of his arc was separating from Vriska. Instead of, like, it being the end. I don't know. Okay, who else is a mid-troll, you say? Oh god, no, he's not saying Kanaya, is he? Yeah. Look, they can be together, okay? Again, I really like Kanaya and Rose together. I think they're a fun dynamic. But they kind of lose the fun part of their dynamic. Which is like this playful, prankstery banter with each other. They just become like cardboard cutouts that stand next to each other and say, yes, she is cute. It's like, that's a little sad. And Kanaya specifically, like at least Rose was relevant in the early game. Kanaya was one of the last trolls we got officially introduced to in Act 5, Act 1. And she got turned into a vampire, but that didn't matter for anything. Like, I still don't even know what her vampire powers are. Assumedly, other than glowing, she could also, like, maybe run fast or be a little stronger than she was before. Who knows? Not me. I don't get it. Yeah, I feel like if there were two characters in Homestuck who I would cherry pick to get a little bit more for them, it would be Kanaya and Rose, for sure. Because they deserve it. They're like two of the most relevant characters that just like they checked out of the story halfway through. And I didn't even oh my god, I didn't even touch on Rose having the alcohol thing. Because I guess it got retconned anyway, but that felt so weird to me. Like, I know it was explained as like, okay, it's an extremely boring 3-year-long journey. But, like, you're in a burgeoning new relationship with an alien. You'd think there'd be better things for you to do than almost ruin it by, you know, getting addicted to alcohol. And sure, maybe it runs in the family, and sure, maybe she was trying to be closer to her mother. But, like, Rose, you're, like, a fan of psychology. What if, like, you talk to Kanaya about it? And she could talk about, you know, her experiences with the matriarch and losing the chance to be a mother. And then they could, like, actually naturally grow into their character arc of being essentially the matriarchs of the neutral species at the end of the story. I'm just writing fan fiction at this point. Let's keep going. Gamzee. Oh, God. Literally why? I think that's fair for Gamzee, okay? I liked Gamzee up until Karkat shooshed him. That's my breaking point. Like the clown thing, it's not really that funny to me. But I think he fit in among the cast as being like the weirdo character for a lot of Act 5, almost all of it. There were some times where I was like, oh god, go away, Gamzee. And really, if I didn't give him this voice, I probably would like him even less, okay? Then he goes full murder mode, and actually, I'm a huge fan of this. I think it's very fun for the trolls to essentially be like a pot that's boiling over, where Karkat was essentially able to, you know, hold the lid down on this pot for their entire quest. But now that the quest didn't end the way they wanted, and people are getting irritated and depressed and stuff, the lid is boiling over. And, like, Eridan is already lashed out, and now Gamzee's going to start lashing out too. And before long, and Vriska's actually already lashed out as well by killing Tavros at this point. Karkat just doesn't know it yet. And I think it's a very good idea to have Karkat's best friend or whatever, the person who he's supposed to be essentially watching over, because he's been so divided in his attention, to be the one that does the most murdering. Or at least the most gruesome murdering. But the problem is, I feel like what probably should have happened is Gamzee should have either died here or got like jettisoned off into like the dream dimension or something. You know what I mean? He should have essentially left the plot, because after this moment, all he's good for is like a couple bit jokes where he shows up and creates Tavros Sprite, which is literally already on the list as a bad plot device. And again, that could have also still happened without him. He could have just had his like fridge full of troll body parts that somebody came across. And then after that, his only role is to be Caliborn's like punching bag, which is fun, sure. Like him staying in that role feels sort of similar to like Fefeta or Aerosol, where like it keeps them kind of relevant, like they're not totally forgotten. Instead, he's just like hanging around all the time. And oh my god, I cannot believe that he had a like evil relationship with Terezi. I can't. Ugh. That's like, every time I remember that, internally, I get a little sadder inside. And I know it's supposed to be a toxic thing, but couldn't she have had a toxic relationship with a real character? Like, what if her and Karkat, because they were so bored, decided, you know what, fine, we'll get into a relationship. And it was just bad for both of them. You know? Because Karkat is way too controlling, and Terezi is way too self-conscious. And Karkat is constantly being like, ew, blah, 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 blah. And it's causing Terezi to, like, feel worse and worse about herself. But Karkat doesn't really know he's doing it because he's just being Karkat. He's just saying shit, you know? That would have been interesting, okay? And it would have added an interesting dynamic to the cast. Again, I'm writing fan fiction. But my point is, I hate Gamzee. I hate him. Screw you, Gamzee. Blah. Alright. I can't talk about Vriska yet. Let's talk about the Alpha Kids. Jane and Jake. Wasted. I mean, I've talked about these two way too much at this point. I was hoping they'd get better. No, not really. Even, like, their endings both left me feeling pretty empty. I guess I could talk about the ending, like, where everybody ended up. I feel like most of them make sense, to the point where I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Even though some of them feel a little weird. You know, like, Calliope and Roxy becoming, like, dictators over the Carapatian people. I don't know about that. Like, if they were living in the Carapatian town and letting, like, Mr. Mayor run the place, perfect. But them being, like, royalty over them feels weird. Kind of exploitative on their part, because the Carapatians are, like, I don't want to say they're stupid, but they're not on the same level all the time. I mean, you look at Mr. Mayor, and then you look at Calliope, and there's a big difference in terms of the way they're able of carrying themselves, you know? Anyway. Jane remade the business that, like, ruined her life, technically, and destroyed the Earth. Like, what? At least call it something else. Like, call it Jane Corp with this red spoon still. That's funny. I kind of like that. You're, like, taking the accomplishment of the Batter Witch for yourself as her heir. I like that. Calling it Crocker Corp still. Like, I know her last name is still Crocker, but I don't know. It just feels like in those fantasy stories when somebody's whole goal is to, like, take down the corrupt establishment, and then they, like, end up being the, like, okay, here's one from this very channel. It's like when Makoto restarts Hope's Peak Academy in Danganronpa. Hope's Peak Academy is the thing that killed, like, it's the catalyst for what destroyed the world, essentially. Why would you start that up again? And even if you wanted to make, like, a school for gifted people, that's fine. Just don't call it Hope's Peak Academy. It feels kind of like that. And then Jake owning a company and employing Dirk also has a weird power dynamic to it, considering how guilty Dirk feels about the relationship. And I'm sure Jake wouldn't have intended it, but, like, why would you make that the ending? Like, if they had, like, each built a company and they were, like, independent companies that work together a lot to, like, make good things happen in the world, that I would like. But Jake specifically having power over Dirk in that way feels bad. Feels, again, exploitative in a way. Anyway. I feel like the odd one out here at this point is Terezi. I really liked Terezi early on. I thought she was kind of fun in terms of the trolls, because she clearly had a conscience. Like, she wasn't going to bully Tavros, for example. And she wanted to, you know, be candid with Nepeta. That's cool. I liked that. It made her stand out against the other trolls. And then she feels really bad about killing Vriska, which I think could have been an interesting arc if we actually focused on that instead of going into the whole self-confidence spiral, which, again, it does kind of make sense. It's just not the most interesting thing to do with her, I would say. And then she kind of just sits on the bench for a while until Game Over, where she does some cool shit. And then the very ending, she does, like, one cool mind power thing, and it's like, okay, sure. I'll put her in pretty cool. In the end, I think that's probably where she resides. We're really getting down to the wire here. Karkat. Karkat is Homestuck. He's kind of like the embodiment of Homestuck. Loud, kind of abrasive, funny, and genuinely has some depth if you look hard enough. You know? The heartfelt moments with Karkat are some of the best moments in the entire comic. because it just really goes to show that despite everything, a character like Vriska or Eridan didn't have to turn out the way they did. You know what I mean? Like, they made choices that led them down these paths. I don't know. Karkat is very interesting to me for that reason. Like, Karkat, just like Eridan, is part of like a subsect of trolls that a lot of trolls don't look at particularly nicely. And people genuinely, or generally, meet him with at least a little bit of annoyance or hostility, in the same way as Eridan. They're kind of foils, except instead of like Eridan, where he secludes himself and then, you know, slowly becomes more and more sociopathic, I guess, to the point of murdering 3 people, Karkat forces himself to take on this leadership role, which is thankless and also maybe not his best fit, but it makes everyone respect him a little bit. You know what I mean? Even Vriska's like, yes, she like mocks him in the end, but to even say like he was a leader shows a level of respect from Vriska that like somebody like Tavros would never get. He's one of the most interesting Homestuck characters, for sure. Does he get kind of shoved aside at the end of the story? Oh, hell yes. But I think he has such a large central role for such a long period of time that I don't care. It's sort of the same as Jade in that way. Like, he does a lot of big things that I feel like if you took him out of the story, Homestuck would be like 50% worse. So yeah. Just avoiding Vriska a little more. Let's talk about Dirk. I mean, I already spoiled that Dirk was going up here when I said literally every Strider is going up here. Yeah. Do I have a Strider bias? Maybe. But, I mean, come on. Look at the sprite I have that's talking to you right now. You see this color scheme? Do you see... Hold on. Do you see this symbol? I'm a kindred spirit with this man, apparently. And yeah, I mean, he's cool. He's also the most active of the alpha kids, so that doesn't hurt either. And I think his relationship with Dave, as short-lived as it is, because we only see it for, again, like 200 pages or something, is probably the most interesting of the dynamics between the alpha and beta kids. Like, Rose and Roxy just really want to see each other, which is fair. Jane and John have, like, nothing to talk to each other about. And I don't even think that Jade ever talks to Jake. So, I guess technically that's because Jane and Jade are supposed to be parallels. But, like, you know, Jane grew up in the same house as John, just in a different universe. So, yeah, I don't know. Roxy. I love Roxy, too. And I must preface this by saying, I did not expect to like the alpha kids at all, okay? I thought introducing main characters at that point of the story is so stupid. Because we've spent so long with our established characters, why would you think we would buy into these ones? After you already gave us a whole other cast of trolls. And it turns out this wasn't the bridge too far, it was the alpha trolls that was the bridge too far. But hey, half the alpha kids, it's not terrible. Yeah, sure, the beta kids have 3 out of 4. The alpha kids having a split 50-50 isn't, you know, that bad. I don't even know what to say about Roxy. Roxy is basically everything I wanted from Rose, I guess, in the case that she continues to be relevant and is also sort of the core of the character, like the group dynamic, which kind of was Rose's thing for a while. Like, Dave and Jade had sort of a thing going on, but like not really. And then Dave and John were very close, and John and Jade were fairly close. But like all 3 of them, you could see Rose talking to them and being like, I'm organizing a plan. And they're like, okay, I'm in for the plan. You know? Even if I feel like Rose and Jade's dynamic is really underdeveloped. She takes the role of a leadership in the friend group in the early days, and Roxy continues that role for her entire existence, essentially. She's like the most friendly Homestuck character, in the sense that, like, you can pair her with any character and she will get something interesting out of them just by nature of being genuine and friendly. It's crazy. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. She's great. Vriska. Vriska has been at the top, the bottom, in her own tier. Sort of a Schrodinger's Vriska at multiple points in these tier lists. Where is she going to end up at the very end? Yeah, I think so. For the record, think Vriska is the most important character in Homestuck. As much as the story will say it's Gamzee, it's Vriska. Without Vriska, the troll dynamic just doesn't work. It falls apart. And that is evident from the meteorite trip, where things are kind of just stalling. And it takes Vriska coming back to fix that. However, I don't think that was intentional, okay? I don't think that was intentional on the part of Andrew Hussey. Andrew Hussey was like, okay, we need something big to finish off Act 5. We're going to have Vriska die. And I think that was a very bad choice. Vriska dying just derails everything for a while. And I kind of got used to it at a point where she was a ghost and she was organizing this army and she was still relevant enough where it felt like, okay, yes, did this make the trip on the boat far less interesting? Yes, and it's kind of ruining Terezi. But at least she was still doing something. And then she becomes Fishka. And then it all gets retconned away. And guess what happens? She's on the damn boat doing all the stuff she should have been doing before, making all the characters go on these journeys. It's just too little too late at that point is the problem. And I'm not even mad that retcon Vriska is so horrible to people again. Because that's Vriska. That's the point of her character, is to be so abrasive that it gets other people to go on their character journeys to be better people, essentially. Like, as much as I loathe to say it, without Vriska, Tavros would never have gone on his full character journey. Even though it felt like she was holding him back sometimes, that was needed for him to eventually overcome her, you know? But that should have happened, like, in Act 5, is the problem. And unfortunately, Vriska died. So it's like the Rose situation, where there's all these moments that happen in Act 6 where I'm like, if Vriska was here, this would be way more interesting. Except the problem is, the reason I want Rose and Kanaya in more stories is because I like Rose and Kanaya. The reason I want Vriska in more of those stories is because they literally just don't function without her. It literally just comes to the point of nobody is talking to each other. Everybody is in their own little friend groups. And without Vriska to get them to, you know, interact and fight with each other a little bit, everything falls apart. And not only that, but she is Homestuck's most dense character. Maybe not interesting, but dense, in the sense that there's the most going on about her. And it really just rubs me the wrong way that her character arc of realizing she doesn't have to murder people, and like the customs of her ancestor and of the troll society do not have to determine the way she acts today, happened. But it happened in the dream world as Fishka, which then got erased, and not only erased in the sense that the real Vriska came back, but like verbally admonished. As in like Mina saying like, no, you suck and you're boring now. And it's like, what, was she boring at that point? Yeah. But she didn't deserve that. Again, her arc kind of got speed ran off screen of her sort of finding her place in the world of complacency or like happiness, let's say. And then the whole goal of the retcon is to tear that down and turn her back into Act 5 Vriska for the ending, where she barely does anything. It's just such a waste, unfortunately. Because I do think Vriska, at her peak, is the best character in Homestuck. But her peak is like 10% of Homestuck, unfortunately. Where she's like relevant, important, doing interesting things for interesting reasons. Like, you can argue as much as you want about should Vriska have put, John to sleep so that Beckrow had to save Jade by jumping into the Sprite. It was already going to happen. That's what Paradox Space is. Vriska was ensuring they weren't in a doomed timeline by essentially making things happen. And yes, she was being an ass about it by saying, like, I'm going to create Lord English so that when I kill him, it'll be my doing, in her convoluted way. But in the end, she didn't really change anything, She just speed ran some stuff. But she's kind of on the same level as Lord English in that way. In the sense where she could have been the most compelling villainess in Homestuck. Like, can you imagine? Okay. Let's write a little bit more fan fiction, okay? Vriska survives Cascade and is on the meteorite with everybody. And instead of her dying, like, let's say Beck Noir died or Gamzee got killed or something like that. Like, Terezi having to kill Gamzee feels a lot more interesting to me, because then it drives a wedge between her and Karkat. And if they're going to have this, like, evil relationship after this, it would make a lot of sense if it was these dark feelings about, things that happen that would drive it. Okay. So, Vriska's still alive. Okay. She's killed Tavros, but, people aren't going to kill her for it, essentially, because as much as it sucks ass that she did that, she is one of the most powerful trolls, and so they keep her around for essentially continued survival, right? This means Rose and Kanaya have someone to sort of rally against together, because Kanaya hates Vriska. And Rose eventually has Black Rom hate for Vriska. And then Dave can be totally just kind of destroyed by Vriska, which would help explain his character arc of going from, yeah, I'm the coolest dude, to being a little bit more self-reflective, right? Karkat and Terezi have this, like, weird, awkward sort of relationship after Gamzee dies or whoever, whatever. They have a weird, awkward relationship regardless, because they kind of didn't sort of maybe dated. And Vriska is here now to exploit that. Terezi wants Vriska to be better, but Vriska is refusing to be better. And Karkat's saying, she'll never get better. That's who she is. She's just bad, And it's driving a further wedge between the two of them, driving their character arcs. It kind of writes itself. Which is why I feel like the sort of you didn't see this coming twist of having her die is probably the most detrimental thing to the latter half of Homestuck, in my personal opinion. But hey, do you agree with my list for the most part? Who do you think I have the farthest off in terms of what you think a character would be ranked as? Do you like any of my literally a bad plot device characters? I could see you liking Terezi's ancestor, to be fair. And maybe Andrew Hussey. I don't know if anybody cares about Godcat or Tavros. And I guess you can give me your top 5 of all time for the Homestuck comic itself, without factoring any of the epilogue stuff or anything like that. To be fair, I should probably give you my top 5, because it is not just the Striders, okay? My real top 5 is probably Dave, Roxy, Karkat, Dirk, Jade. That's probably my top 5. Although in terms of just personal favorites, John and Terezi would be in there, so yeah. Personal favorites wise, I think it would probably be Dave, John, Roxy. Where did Terezi go now? Oh, there she is. Dave, John, Roxy, Carcat, Terezi. I like Dirk a lot. And I like Jade a lot, but it's probably these 5. So yeah, now you know. That is my final Homestuck tier list. I hope you enjoyed because it was an hour and a half long. Oh my god, I'm definitely gonna have to take a break before I record the next tier list. Thanks for watching, again, all of Homestuck and also this video, and being members and doing all that cool stuff. The polls are up right now to vote on what to do next on this channel. You can vote in them at the community tab if you'd like. And I'll see you guys next time. Like, subscribe, drink some water, have good sleeps. I wish you an aura of sleep good. There you go. Just for you. Okay, bye.